In February of 1959, 9 experienced hikers set out on a winter expedition deep into the Ural Mountains of Russia. Their goal was to reach a remote mountain known as Otorten, a difficult journey that would require days of travel through deep snow and brutal winter conditions. The group was led by 23-year-old engineering student Igor Dyatlov. All of the hikers were young, physically fit, and highly experienced in winter expeditions. They had trained for harsh conditions and had successfully completed difficult trips before. But this expedition would end in a mystery that investigators have struggled to explain for more than 60 years. Weeks after the group began their journey, search teams discovered their abandoned campsite on a frozen mountainside. Their tent had been cut open from the inside. Footprints led away from the campsite and into the snow. Some of the hikers had been barefoot. Others wore only socks. Temperatures that night were estimated to be nearly -30 degrees Fahrenheit. For reasons that remain unclear to this day, the entire group had fled their shelter and disappeared into the freezing darkness. This strange and tragic event would later become known as the Dyatlov Pass incident. The expedition began in late January of 1959. The hikers traveled by train across Russia until they reached the last small village before the wilderness. From there, they began the long journey into the Ural Mountains on skis. Photographs later recovered from their cameras show the group laughing and smiling as they moved through the snowy landscape. They appeared excited about the adventure ahead. Each night they built camps in the snow and recorded their progress in journals. Despite the freezing temperatures, morale seemed high. But as the group continued deeper into the mountains, the weather became increasingly severe. Strong winds swept across the slopes, and heavy snowfall slowed their progress. Eventually, the hikers reached a mountain known locally as Koletsiako. The name roughly translates to Dead Mountain. On February 1st, the group made a decision that would later raise many questions. Instead of moving into the forest below for shelter from the wind, they chose to set up their tent on the exposed slope of the mountain. From that position, they could continue their journey toward Otorten the next morning. But sometime during the night, something went terribly wrong. Investigators would later discover that the tent had been sliced open from the inside. The hikers had cut their way out and left their shelter behind. Inside the tent, their belongings remained exactly where they had been left. Boots, warm jackets, food supplies. Everything necessary to survive the cold was still inside. Outside the tent, investigators found a trail of footprints leading down the mountain toward a nearby forest nearly a mile away. What made the discovery even stranger was the pattern of the tracks. The hikers did not appear to have been running in panic. The footprints looked calm, almost as if they had simply walked away from their tent. But why would experienced hikers abandon their shelter in the middle of a freezing winter night? Search teams began following the trail of footprints toward the forest. What they discovered there would only deepen the mystery. Near the edge of the forest, searchers found the first 2 bodies beneath a large cedar tree. The hikers were barely dressed and had attempted to start a small fire. Burned branches suggested they had tried to climb the tree, possibly to look back toward the campsite. But the fire had not been enough to keep them alive in the brutal cold. Both had died from exposure. In the days that followed, search teams discovered 3 more bodies between the tree and the campsite. It appeared these hikers had attempted to return to the tent but collapsed in the snow before reaching it. The final 4 hikers were not discovered until months later, when warmer weather began melting the snow. Their bodies were found in a nearby ravine, buried beneath several feet of ice and snow. The condition of these victims shocked investigators. One hiker had a crushed skull, another had severe chest fractures. Yet, strangely, there were very few visible external injuries. Doctors later compared the damage to injuries typically seen in high-speed car accidents. One of the victims was also missing her tongue. These disturbing details quickly fueled widespread speculation. How could such severe injuries occur without obvious external trauma? And what could have frightened the hikers enough to leave their tent in the first place? Over the decades, many theories have attempted to explain what happened that night. Some researchers believe the hikers may have triggered a sudden avalanche. Others suggest powerful winds on the mountain could have created strange vibrations that caused panic inside the tent. There were also reports of mysterious glowing lights seen in the sky around the time of the incident. This led some people to speculate about secret military testing in the remote area. But none of these explanations fully account for every detail of the case. Why did the hikers calmly walk away from their shelter? Why did some suffer such severe internal injuries? And why were pieces of clothing found scattered between the bodies? In recent years, scientists have revisited the mystery using modern research techniques. Some believe a rare type of avalanche may have forced the hikers to escape the tent suddenly. But even that explanation leaves many unanswered questions. More than 60 years later, the slopes of Dead Mountain remain quiet. Yet the story of the 9 hikers who fled their tent into the freezing darkness continues to fascinate investigators and historians around the world. The Dyatlov Pass incident remains one of the most mysterious tragedies ever recorded. And the question that still lingers today is simple. What really happened on that mountain in the middle of the night?